What's up, and welcome to the Crude Oil Podcast, a weekly uncensored Edmonton Oilers podcast with your hosts, Sean and Greg. All right, what's up? We're back for episode number 2 of the Crude Oil Podcast. We're recording here on, it's Monday evening, 18 hours after the end of game number 4. Sean, how you feeling? Have you calmed down a little?
I've definitely calmed down, but I feel like I had that entire third period to calm down.
That's fair. It's kind of a loaded question, considering that I felt like maybe I was one of the only people who was standing on the ledge last night. It took me a second to back down and realize that we're okay. We're okay. I definitely need that 24-hour cooling period after a game like last night, but...
You know, it's kind of funny because I didn't think about it until I watched the interview, and then Edmonton ended up losing. But I think it was Sheldon Keefe for the Leafs. After they lost, he kind of was just shrugging it off when Tampa tied the series because he's like, we just stole one on the road from them, so I don't really see the problem here. Like, we're going back. We have 2 games in our house. They have 1 in theirs, so I'm feeling pretty good about that.
See, you almost lost me for a second. I was like, why the fuck are we talking about the Leafs 30 seconds in? But you make a great point. I think when you look at it through that lens, it makes sense. Just wanted to steal both games. I think that's just... It's okay.
We should have won both games. I'm not saying we shouldn't have, but at the same time, we should have won both of our home games and then hopefully won one of the road games and then win in 5 at home.
That's right, Sean. We should have swept the series. But here we are. We're on the eve of game number 5. We'll get into those thoughts around game 4 probably more in depth, but figured might as well jump into the first 3 games, do a quick recap, our overall thoughts of what we saw, and, you know, kind of go up game by game, and we'll recap and then jump into the preview for games 5 through 7. Yeah, it kind of feels like we're on the precipice of, you know, the finality of the series, which, I mean, we are, but fuck, it was just here, like, beginning last week, and here we are, like, almost over.
It's weird how fast time can fly in these series. Like, I'm surprised no series have ended yet. I guess tonight Colorado can sweep Nashville, but yeah. I'm surprised that's the only series that's going to be a sweep.
Well, and you go back to some of the predictions that we had last week, and some were bang on, some of them completely off. The Rangers point in particular.
I blame Florida as well.
Yeah.
But regardless, I feel like we should probably just hop into talking about game 1.
Yeah. One of the first losses of this series so far. Here we are already starting off on a negative path, Greg. Come on.
We're going to start negative, we're going to end negative, and then we're going to start super positive because we're going to win game 5 and 6.
I like that optimism.
So game 1, I think Edmonton played okay, but LA played extremely well, and it kind of showed ultimately. Like, our team just couldn't outscore their defensive zone mistakes, which has been the story of their regular season, especially through that losing streak they had.
I found that they looked really nervous.
Oh, they were very jittery.
Yeah, it's like the first 10 minutes, it was very much run and gun, loose hockey, and just it wasn't the Oilers that we're used to seeing.
Well, not over the past little while anyway, but you could see it in like players like Yamamoto when he took the most blatant penalty I've ever seen in my entire life. But yeah, I don't know why the crowd got to them so much. I guess playing in the playoffs without fans for 2 years in a row really didn't prepare them very well for it. So I think they came out in game 2, though, extremely well with that.
Yeah.
And then before we move on, though, to game 2, I just wanted to mention that I know everybody was calling for Mike Smith's head after the game 1. I'm sure they're eating crow now. But anybody who wanted to switch from him after game 1 is just lying to themselves and just hate Smith for hating Smith and no other reason.
Yeah. My thoughts just before we jump into that second game, I'm kind of deciding whether I want to get into this, but I'm really frustrated with this whole fucking penalty situation that's going on in these playoffs. Fuck it, let's dive in now.
Do you mean lack thereof penalties or too many penalties?
Far too many. Far too many. I feel like when Bettman came out right before the playoffs started and he's saying how when you look at the past 3 years and you average out the amount of penalties per game, it's actually higher in the playoffs. I felt like that was just a message he was sending to kind of pay attention. And then it was almost as if he sent a message to the refs being like, everything gets called. Because how many, like, look at McDavid drawing penalties in the playoffs.
Well, this year he's drawn at least 2 that I can remember, maybe more, but I can't remember off the top of my head. I think the biggest problem is almost every penalty is a coincidental. It seems like they're constantly just calling like the first guy for a penalty and then call the retaliation, and they're both in the box.
Yeah. Well, you look at game 1, you have 8 power plays in total throughout the game. There's an additional coincidental, like you mentioned, but it's playoffs. Like it just feels like too much of a tick-tacky. I don't love it. It's not the brutal kind of grind that we're used to seeing, and I don't know. I think some calls are pretty weak, pretty soft, but at the same time, I don't find there's a lot of consistency because they're letting a lot of stuff slide, and then the smallest thing is getting called. But yeah,
well, those first few games, I definitely agree that there was so much inconsistency in what they were calling. Like they'd call weak penalties and let blatant stuff go. But I don't know. I also didn't like. I don't want to jump ahead of myself, but in like game 4 where they called like 6 10-minute misconducts in the last 10 minutes of the game.
Oh yeah. That's definitely get out of our face so we don't have to deal with you, or this doesn't turn into a like Bash Brothers incident.
Well, it's kind of funny because if that was a close game, they wouldn't have called any of those.
Yeah.
But they didn't want Edmonton to get out of hand with the fact that they were losing. But ultimately in game 1, I think Edmonton should have won that game. They couldn't outscore their mistakes. And I think we just move on to game 2 from there.
That's the mentality you got to go with. That's for sure. That is for sure. So game 2, also known as the Mike Smith takes the haters and shoves it up their hoops game. From start to finish, like this was an absolute domination.
It's the first game that Edmonton, or I guess I'll say the only game they've come out and played hard in the first period and played well in the first period. I don't know what lit it under them, and I'm hoping that lights it under them for Game 5 after losing a game. Maybe that's why. But they came out swinging in that first period.
Yeah. One of the big takeaways that I had in game number 2, and it made the Oilers really successful. And I don't know if, well, it doesn't, because we'll look at I was going to say, I don't know if it has anything to do with home ice advantage in the last change, but if you look at the 2 games that the Oilers have won this series, they've won the face-off percentage. We'll get into it. I feel like we're jumping all over the place. We're so excited to talk about this game we just saw. But game 2, face-off percentage, the Oilers won 56% of all of the face-offs. You get immediate control, and I think it sets you up for success. But again, to my point with the special teams, the Oilers are dominant in special teams. I think they're sitting, they were before game 4, but after game 3, they're sitting around 150% combined PK and PP percentage, which is unheard of.
Well, I'm pretty sure after game 3, it was, what was it? They were 50% on the power play. And then like LA was like what am I trying to say? They were minus 12.5% on their penalty kill because Edmonton scored a shorty and they hadn't scored a power play goal yet or something like that. Or that was after game 2.
Interesting.
Imagine having a negative penalty kill.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was a thing.
That was a negative power play.
Yeah, I guess. It would just be a goal against on the PK, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah, game 2, the Oilers just walked the Kings 6-0. Mike King. He was the king in game number 2. Mike Smith kind of really taking it to all the haters. And then really when you move into game 3, I really don't think he did anything less in an 8-2 victory. Just another complete domination from the Oilers from start to finish.
Well, I think the big thing is they came out physical. Like, if you look at the hits in both Game 2 and Game 3, they absolutely, like, dominated the hits. And I would say by far they were the most physical team. Guys like Cassian were absolutely leveling people. Like, when you do that to them, all they hear is footsteps, those, like, young defensemen, and they get rid of the puck and put themselves in bad positions.
Well, I think it helps, too, the Oilers establishing that early goal and, really quietening that crowd in LA, although massive difference between what's going on in LA and what's going on in Edmonton. That was actually kind of remarkable to see. But, I agree with you. A lot of physicality in their game that they really got away from in Game 4, and it was to their advantage. Back to my previous point, 52% in the face-off circle, which is, again, just kind of showing how important those draws are. But
well, I don't want to put too much emphasis on face-off percentage, but I do think it's important, especially in the defensive zone, because there's been so many times where they lose that defensive zone face-off, and then LA just has extended pressure when the McDavid line's out there, when the Draisaitl line's out there, and they can't get possession, and they have to change because they've been on the ice for a minute and can't skate anymore.
Well, so here's where I disagree with that, because when you look at the face-offs, especially in Game 4 where the Oilers, they just flat out sucked. But how many face-offs did they have with the power play that they lost control right off the hop and they spent 20 seconds going down to their own end to pick up the puck?
You know, it's funny you say that, because I remember watching a power play in Game 4 where I think they lost the face-off, and then they didn't have another chance to get into the zone because they lost the face-off, they skated it down, and then they, like, LA fucked around with the puck, passed it back to their defenseman, and it was like 40 seconds before they even got possession so they could try to make a zone entry.
Yeah. So maybe that's just why it's on my mind right now, just knowing how bad it was in Game 4 and how trying to find correlations between what was really working in the middle games, and then just seeing if there's anything that was missing. So we've kind of danced around it for a little bit now. We might as well talk about Game 4. It's the most recent in our mind.
Well, there's not much else to say about Game 2 and 3. They played extremely well. They just need to replicate that. But I think talking about Game 4 is what we need to do here. Try to take away what we can to figure out what they need to not do.
Yeah. Let's take a seat on the therapist couch and get this done, because...
Talk me through this, Greg.
Oh my God, man. It was just a flat out dud. This sounds bad, but you ever watch a game and you can see in the first 10 minutes that they don't have it?
Well, you could say that even about Game 3, mind you, because they got outshot. What did they get outshot by in the first period? 19-7 by LA in the first period of Game 3.
Yeah.
But Smith absolutely bailed them out, and even they got outshot not as badly in terms of ratio, but they were still outshot 2-1 by LA in the first period.
Well,
the only reason why it wasn't 5-0 or something was because Mike Smith was standing on his head.
Exactly. Well, to your point about shots, I was paying attention last night. When we got to the second intermission, the Kings were basically like they're averaging almost a shot per minute, and the Oilers weren't even half that. Like, it's
yeah, I don't understand. Like, LA had 34 shots after the second, and Edmonton only had 18.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially after that first period. Like, I can excuse it in the first period. You come out flat, whatever. But I won't excuse it 2 periods in a row after you get blown out in the first period, coming out and getting outshot again almost 2-1 as well.
Yeah, well, and another big piece that I'm starting to think is going to play a bigger role than we actually think is Derek Ryan out of the lineup in Game 4. And
I've heard people talking about it. Maybe that plays into that face-off percentage you're talking about, having him being able to take Nuge's weak side face-offs. But like leading into this game, maybe I just was underappreciating him, but I haven't really noticed him all series.
I think he's one of those compliment players. Like Puljujarvi, I think is proving to be more valuable on that top line than we actually realize. I know it might be debated, but I think it provides bigger, like if Puljujarvi can get going on that top line, I think that the Oilers have a deeper lineup especially when you can stretch the Yamamoto down to second line. You can keep Derek Ryan down there. It's just when you look at Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and you pair him with Derek Brassard and who the hell was playing? Josh Archibald. There's no opportunity for Nuge to shine the way Nuge can shine. And I think Woodcroft kind of saw that. If you look at the first two periods, it seemed like the last two shifts of every period, Nuge was up on that second line. It looked like Puljujarvi was actually sitting, allowing, Yamamoto to jump up on the top. But
yeah, that was something that happened like midway through the second, I think, where they just started putting the lines in a blender. But then I think at the start of the third, they were right back to normal. So I'm thinking maybe that might have just been thrown off by a penalty kill or something. So then the lines were just all messed up. But
well,
the thing with Puljujarvi, like, I know everybody's going to sit here and say, like, look at his advanced stats, look how he's doing. And, like, I can't really argue with that. But at the same time, I think he would be better off in a less pressure situation. But on the same note, I don't know who to put there because nobody else has really done anything to give them the case to be there. Like, Yamamoto's fine on Draisaitl's line. He feels like he's playing well. His stats don't really show it besides a goal and an assist. But like, you don't really want to put Cassie in there because it'll probably just be more of the same, especially when he did not bring it in game 4 whatsoever. I was like talking how he was a wrecking ball in game 2.
Yeah.
But I don't even remember him throwing a hit in game 4. I can't even picture him. Like, he probably has a hit, but
listed with 3, but still it's hard to believe.
Well, like, I think the difference is the quality of those hits because I think the hits just weren't there at all. Like, looking at those stats actually from game 4, like, the hits I really don't agree with.
You got to wonder how much that's inflated maybe a little bit. It seemed like every whistle there was a scrum afterward. And yeah, I don't know. I'm with you. It kind of felt like a couple players just slept through the game. It was
a couple players. I think the whole team slept through that.
Yeah, it's
game.
probably easier to list the guys that showed up, but
the only person who felt like I noticed him that game was Kane.
But that's been the story of the whole series, right?
It's true. Like, he seems to be the only guy who, well, he thrives in the playoffs, I think, with his size and his scoring ability. You can kind of score from anywhere, throw the body, like, defend the puck. It's hard to beat him, but I don't know. He needs to find a way to show Puljujarvi how to play too, because I'm so tired of watching him not throw his body around when he's a behemoth out there, and he just doesn't realize it.
Yeah.
Still thinks he's a Bambi out there.
I think he's still figuring it out. You got to wonder too if, well, I don't know if he's still sick or what, but you think he's probably still getting his legs, so to speak.
Well, like, how long are we going to sit here and wait for him to get his legs? Like, get your legs in the bottom 6, not playing shotgun with Connor McDavid. I'm not saying he's dragging him down by any means, but he needs to also elevate the players with him. He needs to bring something that line does not have, and he's not doing that.
See, it's the intangibles for me, though. I think...
I hate that word so much.
Why?
Because I just hate it. Everybody talks about like Puljujarvi's advanced stats, for example, but like at the end of the day, you need to have points too. Like, I know your stats are good, but you need to be able to produce at the same time.
He scored in game 2.
Cool. In a blowout game, he was, I think, the 5th or 6th goal in that game.
So, you said you need to put up points on top of being intangibles.
Yeah, but it needs to be significant points. But with that being said, that like, I might contradict myself by saying like Kane was playing well and he had like 3 goals in the third period of an 8-2 game. But
yeah,
I don't know. He's just not bringing what that line needs. I'm not saying that he's not playing well or anything. He's just not what that line needs. I think he would be better suited playing with Nuge, and then we can give Nuge better players to play with because he's having the Draisaitl effect that he had for a couple years, not playing with McDavid. He just got the shit line mates. He's playing with Toby Reeder and whoever the hell they threw on his right wing.
Yeah.
So, like, now Yamamoto's in the same boat playing with Brassard, who was a healthy scratch the game before, and Archibald, who's played 10 games all year.
Yeah. Well, before I get to that next point, the Puljujarvi thing, just to wrap it all up, I think the reason that I kind of like him in his spot right now, and I completely understand the argument, how long are you going to give him that opportunity? but I think he's still very young. He's still trying to get his footing. He's clearly in a bit of a slump right now. You got to find a way to build up that confidence, because we've seen him, like when Puljujarvi goes, like he's a dominant player, but he's not that big power forward wrecking ball that we kind of saw at the start of the season.
I'm fine with having this conversation in the regular season, but it's game 5 of the first round of the playoffs.
That's fair.
I can't sit here and be like, "Oh, go have fun. Make sure you get confident. It's okay. You can do okay." But no, we need him to be great. He can't just ride the coattails of his line mates.
I've got nothing to add to that. So
enough ripping apart Puljujarvi and stuff, though. Like I love the guy as a player, but I just want to see more because I feel like I know that he can bring more.
Okay, so I'll move on to my next topic, which I'm kind of wondering if it's playing an impact. I kind of like the insertion of Josh Archibald. I thought it was good in game 2. Is the deviation from 11 and 7 kind of throwing this team a little bit off kilter?
I'm going to say no. Only because I really like being able to roll 4 lines, especially in the playoffs, without having to overplay McDavid and Draisaitl. I think it was really, really helpful in game 2 and 3, where they barely had to play because they had a full roster. But if it was 11, they probably would have each had to play an extra 2-3 minutes. And who knows, but...
Yeah. You look at the back end, though, there's... I was so ready to say this, and then obviously the unfortunate goal happened last night, but I truly think that Duncan Keith has been the best defenseman that the Oilers have had this playoff. I think...
When you say the unfortunate goal last night, sorry, which one do you
Just
mean?
the shot from the point that went off his stick, and then it got... I
yeah.
think it was... They say it was tipped. I didn't see the tip after
he tipped it in.
Yeah.
He was the one who 100% tipped it in. I thought you were talking about the first one because he's the one who cleared it up the boards.
Yeah.
And it hit the ref. So that's the reason why I didn't go out.
Yeah.
I would like to say that the puck was bouncing all over the fucking place.
I know. It felt like a potato field last night.
Well, like he threw it up the boards there. We're talking about that first goal. It hits the ref in the back. That it's bouncing in the corner. Draisaitl's on the wall, like fighting for the puck. And then all of a sudden it pops out, bounces perfectly over Bouchard's stick, and just leaves, I think it was Deneau wide open, who just backdoor tap or passed it to Iafallo for the tap in.
Well, when we go back to the goal, I went back and I watched that replay like 2 or 3 different times, and you see the puck jump over Bouchard's stick, and he's kind of like, oh shit, like I got to get back. But when he goes back, and it was Deneau that made the pass, right?
Yeah.
When he comes back in, he doesn't even bother to pick up that second man. Like,
well, I think they were in a full panic situation, mind you, but that's no excuse because they need to not panic. And Bouchard should be the guy who doesn't panic. That's kind of his MO.
Yeah.
But maybe he needed to panic a little bit.
A little bit more.
Yeah. Well, he really lacks that in his game sometimes. But like I will say, I was talking a lot of shit to him about lack of urgency in game 1.
Right to him.
But then game 2 and 3, he played extremely well. And that leads into Keith playing extremely well as well. Sorry for interrupting you and going off on that side tangent. But
no, it was a very valuable tangent. No, I was just going to say, I think Keith is really showing the value of his contract right now. I'm not going to say that he's worth every single penny or whatever, but just the value. I find that he really controls the pace of the breakout. There's a lot of, especially you noticed in, like the easiest time you could notice it was in game 1, where you saw like all these Oilers in the first 10 minutes just running around like it's their first time ever going to a birthday party, and he's got the puck behind the net and he kind of slowly walks it out like he's been there before. He's seen this. He's done that. Like, I think it gives the Oilers a level head when they need one.
Well, he's also brought out a really good part of Bouchard.
Oh,
which I think he's calmed his nerves a lot. But
yeah.
I will say game 4, I just saw that they were both -3. So I don't know about that. Like, I guess one goal was an empty netter on that because I know Nurse was on the ice for the third goal.
I was going to say that's the most overrated stat in my mind, especially when you can get a minus for being on the ice for an empty net.
Well, I mean,
but it tells a story.
At the end of the day, they were both struggling on both the first 2 goals. Like, they both kind of made a mistake. Like, Keith on that first goal probably didn't need to clear up the boards. He didn't really have that much pressure on him. And then he did hit the ref, mind you, and then it bounced over Bouchard's stick, and then they both lost coverage on Deneau and Iafallo. But then that leads into the second goal with Stetcher's goal. Keith was just kind of like standing there and not tying up his man and just kind of let him get the shot away for free. I don't know. And like, because that's the one he tipped in, right?
Yeah, that
like
one,
instead of trying to get he was like, that was a point shot, right? So he's at the blue line and he's probably like 6 to 10 feet in front of Smith towards Stetcher, who was taking the shot. So he's a good 20 feet between Stetcher and him. So rather than tie up the guy that's beside him, he decides to try and get a stick on the puck that's flying at him. Like, I don't really understand his thought process there. I think it'd be better to try and push that guy out, box him out, give Smith the clear shot, like the clear look on the shot, and let him make the save.
So who the fuck wins that argument when Mike Smith gets pissed off and he looks at Duncan Keith? You have Mike Smith, who's been doing this forever at 40 years old, and then you have Duncan Keith, who's won every award under the sun.
Well, Duncan Keith just takes off his glove and he's wearing his 3 Stanley Cup.
Yeah, exactly.
But also, I don't want to argue with Smith because his death glare would probably murder somebody just by looking at them.
Yeah, yes. Very intimidating guy. But as much as we want to say the Oilers sucked, I honestly think that the Kings played an airtight game. For my own personal opinion, I sometimes forget how tenured Todd McClellan is as a coach. I think that's one of the remarks that I took away after game 1 is realizing this guy's seen it before. He's been around the block. But it kind of showed again that the Kings, I mentioned last week, like, adapt. That's the key for the Oilers to be successful in this series. But that's exactly what the Kings did. If you look at the Oilers' power play, a much more aggressive Kings penalty kill, and it didn't really allow the Oilers to really set up.
Yeah, I noticed they were kind of playing that like swarm the puck carrier kind of strategy, which I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's effective, but watching it sure seems effective most of the time. Like, Edmonton should, in theory, be one of those teams that can just outskate the guy chasing them and hopefully get open, but I don't know. That just wasn't working out for them, I guess.
Yeah, I think the Kings played a really, really strong game. Jonathan Quick was godlike that game. Yeah. And, okay, I saw a bunch of shit on Twitter last night. Those people out there, whoever is out on Twitter thinking that we should, I saw a tweet that said if we had Jonathan Quick in net, this would have been a series sweep already.
That's completely untrue.
Completely untrue.
The guy who got pulled in game 3 and has in total, or in those 2 games, gave up 10 goals in 2 games. Like,
he's an easy scapegoat because he had the fuck up in game 1, and sure, he let in a fair bit of goals in game 4, but he wasn't terrible.
There's nothing like blaming your goalie when you scored 0 goals and be like, wow, if we had a better goalie, we would have won. It's like you literally didn't score any goals. How are you supposed to win?
Well, it also helps when the other team can fucking Superman the puck into the back of the net.
I mean, I will say that I did not think that should have counted. They're like, oh, he cross-checked it into the net. And I was like, oh, okay. How about like the goaltender interference? Like, we'll get into that later because I want to talk about all that, but...
Yeah, I won't go too much down that, but it's just something about the Oilers with a review challenge in the playoffs in California that just doesn't seem to go well with them.
One thing I thought was really funny about that is they reviewed the goal, right? Mm-hmm. And then after they called it a goal, they went and told Woodcroft.
Right.
And he was sitting there arguing with them. And I'm pretty sure like how it went is they were like, yeah, it wasn't a glove hand goal. Mm-hmm. And then he's sitting there like, but was it goaltender interference? And I feel like they were like, oh, we don't know. And then he's like, okay, well, I'm going to challenge that. And then it feels like 5 seconds later, they talk on the mic for like 5 seconds, drop in, they're like, still a goal. And I was like, you guys fucking knew that it wasn't goaltender interference and what you were already going to call before he challenged that.
That's exactly what I thought too. When I went upstairs, it was almost as if they're like, fuck this guy. Like, we're not reviewing this again.
Like, I literally like looked away at my phone to like text my friends and be like, be like, I think this might have been goaltender interference. I look up and they already be like, no, it's not. Let's keep going. I'm just like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah. And then they get the empty net goal after that, and things started to get a little bit nasty. We saw the suspensions not the suspensions, but the game misconducts that they're handing out left and right. One thing I wanted to kind of touch on is that little rat fuck Lemieux on that team.
You know, speaking of Lemieux, I wonder if him and Barry are going to fight, because he is in Barry's head. Like, Barry loses his fucking mind when he's on the ice. It's hilarious.
Well, in the Mikey Anderson, Connor McDavid angle that we're seeing is kind of interesting too.
How about CC like absolutely destroying that guy with like the flying like takedown? He comes flying at him. He just grabs him out of the air and throws him to the ground.
The amount of joy that I'm getting from using wrestling memes on our Twitter account just to compare what's going on, from Evander Kane's goals to Cody Cece's body slams, is just making my heart happy.
Well, it's so weird. Like, this seems like it's kind of ironic that Chuck Liddell was in the crowd. Louis wouldn't stop. Oh my God,
was he in the crowd?
Yeah, Louis would not shut up about that. That was driving me nuts.
Freaking hard on for the guy.
There was so like every scrum, like there was that. I think it was Nugent Anderson were like having that scrap behind the net, just rolling around in the second period, and I was like, what is happening in this game? Like, I don't think either team knows how to have a proper hockey scrum. They just all take each other down.
Well, and back to the point that I was getting to, it seemed like Cassian was challenging Lemieux, and I feel like he's just one of those players that'll pick and pick and pick, and one of these times, I mean, hate to say it, but look what happened to his dad back in '96, lays a dirty-ass hit and causes probably the biggest line brawl I've ever seen in my life, but...
Well, I think it's inevitable that he's going to have to fight somebody. It's kind of funny you bring up like the ratness though, because I was just reading comments about Jamie Benn was talking about Matthew Tkachuk.
Yes.
Where Ben was mic'd up all last game and he challenged Tkachuk to a fight like 4 times. And every time Tkachuk was like, no, we're not fighting. And there's like, why do you think he didn't want to fight you? And Jamie Benn's like, because he's smart. It's like, I wouldn't want to fight me neither.
Yeah, well, I know it was a kind of a way for him to take the higher road and look like the strong guy, but there's something to that angle. I think it's just to piss off players, but I just think there's going to come a point in this series where Lemieux's going to continue to do something stupid and he's going to have to pay the piper. Well,
it's inevitable. You can't go through a whole series playing like that without having to do something.
Yeah.
It's like... The thing is, if he was a good player, like if he was a Matthew Tkachuk, a Brad Marchand, if he was also a skill player, then I would say like he probably wouldn't have to, because somebody might try to fight for him. But like that's kind of what his job is. He should also be a fighter, because he's like a third, fourth liner.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, we've taken a good bite, pun intended, out of Game 4. Let's take a look at these next couple games.
What do you change going into Game 5?
What do you change? Well, I think there just needs to be a higher battle level with this team. They're losing far too many puck battles in Game 4. I think the change of scenery will be good. Back in Edmonton, the crowd's going to show up. I think the first 10 minutes, the Kings will tell you is the most important part of the game, but I'm sure the Oilers know it is for them too.
In my opinion, that's the number one thing they need to do, is have a good first period. Like, you don't even have to score. Just make sure LA doesn't score. You're at least even, because they've been blown out in the first period 2 games in a row, come out flat-footed, and this team struggles, it seems, to come back once they're down. Like, they might be able to tie it, but then they let off the gas again. So they need to get ahead, and for some reason, once they get ahead, they seem to just really like put their foot down on the throat of whoever they're playing.
Yeah, well, yeah, I would agree with that. Kind of side note, do we know if Derek Ryan is out? Is he available for tomorrow night's game?
I believe he was just having a maintenance day from what I was reading. So yeah, well, he had a maintenance day the day after, because the reason he's out is that Anthony Ryan collision.
After that, that's what I thought it was. Yeah.
So I believe he took a maintenance day and then he took the game off, and then he's probably resting again today. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's back in. but there was never an official announcement of what happened. But that's also how the playoffs work. They never release injuries because they're too afraid.
Yeah, he's got a finger injury, and it's a upper body injury. No, the reason that I asked that is I think you have to get Nuge activated somehow, or you gotta flip up the bottom six. I don't like that pairing of.
Always bump up Ryan McLeod.
Well, that's a great point.
But then Devin Shore would probably have to come in, assuming Ryan's injured, because they need a center for the
shootout specialist.
I'm okay with that. I want to see what he brings. He's a hard worker. If he throws a hit, then he's already doing better than most of the team from the last game. So,
but to your end, why don't we just switch back to 11-7?
Well, that's just the argument for 11-7, and I don't know if I want 11-7 because they did that in game 1, and then they went away from it in 2 and 3. So, like, you could argue that it wasn't necessarily a positive impact on the team because I think it makes the bottom line struggle to get into the game.
It does. I do find it gives a little bit more security on the back end. Like, look at CC last night, even in that egg of a game that they laid. He had 23 minutes. Like, I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens. It's not like they've played a long overtime game and these guys should be tired or any reason, but it just seems like we have too many kind of floaters on the top 12 that it's like maybe you've, flip the script and put Shore in, pull someone out.
Pull Brassard out.
Yeah.
Like, he threw some hits in that game, but otherwise he didn't really do anything.
Yeah.
That's one thing, is he was the only person I was noticing throwing hits. It's like watching Tyler Benson in the regular season fighting for his career. So essentially your main key to the game will be for game 5.
Oh, it was a question. No,
sorry. I probably should have worded that as a question instead of blah, 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 blank.
No, I think they need to have a higher battle level. Like, the compete needs to be much, much higher. This is going to kind of... it's going to be counterintuitive to what I said last week about why Woodcroft's a good coach and why the message of Woodcroft is different from Tippett, but... I
just got to work harder.
Well, yeah, exactly. I saw John Cooper's comments this week when everyone was saying how the Tampa Bay Lightning look burnt out. They look tired, and he said, "If you're tired, you don't want to win." And so that's kind of the look that the Oilers gave last night. So that's just, it's compete, man. It's compete for me.
I really wish we could have the lackadaisical attitude that John Cooper has in those interviews.
Just going to watch a movie every game day.
Yeah. Well, it's like after game 1, he's like, oh yeah, like, it's just game 1. Like, who gives a shit? Meanwhile, in Edmonton, we lost game 1 and we were ready to burn the city down. I guess that's what winning 2 Stanley Cups in a row will do for you.
Yeah, it calms the heart rate down a little bit, hey?
A little bit. They've all been there by now. We are all panicking still.
So, to your point, what is your key? Is it the first 10 minutes? Is it something else?
Well, I think the first 10 minutes are important, but if I'm talking on a full game level, they need to play physical and they need to hit those young defensemen and get them panicking again, like they did in game 2 and 3, because I think it was in game 2, Sean Dursey took 7 hits or something like that, and in game 4 he only took 2 or 3. Which, as essentially their number 1 defenseman, they need to really lay it on him. So, they need to bring it physically. And I don't know what's going to change to get them to do that. I don't know if they just, have one screen of game 2 gameplay and one screen of game 3 gameplay, and they're like, watch this, do this again.
Let's get physical.
I think the best thing to do is just throw away that game tape.
Yeah.
And just essentially say, don't do what you just did. Hey, who knows? Maybe they were just partying in LA, riding the high of their win, and partied on Friday night, partied on Saturday night. I don't know. Draisaitl looked like he was ready to throw up all game. He was barely moving.
Oh, I don't want to rag on him too much, but I think he played horrible.
He might still be injured, from when he was nursing something at the end of the season there.
Well, to me, maybe horrible is a strong word, but I did feel like the decisions he was making were kind of dopey headed. Like the amount of just passes he would make on the power play, just flipping to where some guy should be without looking. I know that's kind of the MO of the Oilers power plays. They've got this kind of intuition of where people will be, but it just some just brain farts in terms of passing and making plays. But I don't know. I can't single him out because the whole team played like shit.
That's fair.
So, out of the next 3 games, 2 of them are at home. That's got to be a positive, hey?
Well, it's like we said at the beginning of the show. That's like what Sheldon Keefe was saying about the Leafs, and I think that applies to us too. It's like we went in there, them having 3 games at home, us having 2, and now we have 2 games at home, they have 1. So statistically speaking, we have the advantage. We're back to having home ice advantage again because we lost it after giving 1 away at home.
Yeah.
And now we have it back again. So we just need, now that we're hopefully not jittery when we go home, we hopefully can use that energy, come out strong in the first period, and hopefully ride that high for the rest of the game.
Agreed there. Well, that'll kind of do it here for our game 5 through 7 preview. The rest will just be crossing our fingers and toes and just keeping our eyes closed until we can, I don't know, make it through the next 24 hours. I don't know. It's been such an emotional roller coaster. These late games aren't really helping me. I know these 8 p.m. starts aren't the funnest, especially on a Sunday night. And then
I'm so happy there hasn't been overtime yet.
oh my God, no kidding.
I'm exhausted, and like I shouldn't be this exhausted, but like it keeps fucking with my sleep schedule. And I'm sure everybody in Edmonton feels the same way, besides those Nighthawks out there or the people who work in the late morning or in the afternoon.
But it's worth every single like ounce of tiredness you get.
If assuming they win, I will be very disappointed if I stay up late and they lose, like last night. I was so mad. I was like, why am I if you're going to play like this, I'm just going to go to bed.
Sean's riding in the streets because he's lost sleep over the past week and a half.
Well, like, fuck. They're playing on the ice like they're sleeping. Why can't I sleep too?
Okay, that's a fair point.
It's a bunch of bullshit.
Well, let's wrap up this podcast with our first segment of our show, actually. Sean, are you excited?
Yes, I love segments. Segments are fun.
Segments are fun. So we're introducing the plus minus of the week. This week's plus minus segment is brought to you by the Wayne Gretzky statue on 104th Avenue. Hey LA, how come your Gretzky statue doesn't have a cup? The Wayne Gretzky statue on 104th Ave. Sean, who is your minus of the week?
My minus of the week, I was going to talk about goaltender interference, but I've actually changed my mind because I was looking at my notes from the game, and I remembered that I sat there and I wrote like 5 sentences about something that was kept pissing me off. And it's all the stupid sports betting ads that will not stop playing between breaks. It's like I am losing my fucking mind.
It is bad.
It's like Jackpot City, Bet 99, Sports 365, whatever the hell Dan O'Toole's trying to sell me. Like I don't know, man. It's making me lose my mind. Like, why is this legal to advertise gambling this much?
It's like it now that it's super, elite, not illegal, super legal. Jesus, to do. It's like they're shoving it down your throat. Like, do it or else. But
it's way too much. And like the worst part is they all have these former NHL players selling them. Like, I think Gretzky's in one. He doesn't actually say anything. He just kind of stands there. But the one that I hate the most is Matthew Barnaby trying to sell me something. I don't know why, but the last thing I want to do is buy something that Matthew Barnaby wants me to buy.
That makes sense. He's also got that line in the commercial that says, my playing career might be over. Isn't that the same guy who like decided to go to a training camp in the ECHL when he heard Sean Avery, his arch enemy, was firing back up? Like,
I think so. The only thing I remember of him is he made the Angry Bieksa face the one time, and Vigneault couldn't stop laughing.
I thought that was
I thought it was Barnaby who did that.
Not Filppula.
Filppula.
Son of a bitch. I can see his face. There's a V in his name. People listening to the show are gonna lose their minds because they're like, yeah, you idiots, it's this person.
Well, now I have to Google it. Do you want to talk about your minus while I Google that?
Yeah, I can talk about my minus. I'm gonna put a player into this category this week. It's I I hate it when my minus is actually a player when the whole team sucked. But Tyson Barrie, just give away central no-brain hockey plays. Just, it's funny when you look back. I was one of the defenders of Tyson Barrie when he got signed because I was like, you know what? He has the potential to put up like a shit ton of points. We saw it last year, but right now the guy couldn't score if he walked into a 10-cent brothel with a pocket of dimes. Like there's just nothing there.
Well, it's like I mentioned before. I think Lemieux's in his head too.
Yeah.
He's not playing the way that he should be, and I think that kind of plays into it.
Did you figure out who the player was?
Yes, it's Vern Fiddler.
I knew it was a V.
You know, that just goes to show how forgettable Matthew Barnaby is. Is that I just attribute him to other people.
There you go. All right, Sean, your plus for the week.
My plus is absolutely 100% Mike Smith. I don't think anybody can argue that. Like, he had that shaky first game, but what were his save percentage? 100, a 960 something. He had a 933 the other night. You can't really ask for much more from him. And at 40 years old, that's disgusting. Like, it actually hurts my brain.
Yeah, it's inhumane.
Like, anybody who is trashing him, they need to like look in the mirror and look at this team in other areas and stop blaming him. Like, I would blame the defense on 90% of the goals that occur before I blame him. And I say 90% because that one was 100% Mike Smith's fault. But yeah, there's not much more I can say.
Yeah.
And I don't want to hear a single person badmouth him again. It's just a joke at this point.
Old man power, hey?
Well, exactly. Maybe this team needs a little bit more old man power. I don't know what Bouchard's doing. He's supposed to be like 35 or something. That's what I was reading.
My plus of the week is going to be kind of a niche one, but just from experience being on benches, being both a player and a coach. In Game 3, Leon Draisaitl broke his stick, and within 5 seconds of breaking his stick, he hit over to the half wall, got a check, and the trainer or the equipment guy on the bench had his stick ready to grab right off the hop, and the puck stayed in the own end. Like, that was incredible. So my plus goes to whoever the hell it was that acted so quickly to keep the Oilers special teams rocking and rolling the way they have been lately.
I wonder if they have a guy who's just specifically there to grab sticks.
Oh, I wonder.
He's like a F1 pit stop guy where he's just like sitting there waiting. As soon as the stick breaks, he just flies as fast as he can.
It's the same dude that sits and like does the dance with the gloves as they come in after the
Exactly.
That's a good gig. So Oilers, if you're hiring, I think that'll about do it for episode 2 of the Crude Oil Podcast. Sean, you ready for these next few days of craziness?
I think so. I think I'm going to try and catch up on sleep tonight so I can stop complaining about it.
You heard it there. Edmonton, get your rest. Game 5's tomorrow night. Let's go Oilers.